Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland. My name is Professor Camilla Carroll, and I'm joining you from Dublin with a live audience in the Albert Theatre, and I would also like to welcome all of our RCSI friends and colleagues who are joining us from all over the world. This is always a very special time for Ireland. We're on the cusp of celebrating the first in-person St. Patrick's weekend. And today I would very much like to invite the President of the Royal College of Surgeons, Professor Ronan O'Connell, to open the first Dublin meeting of patient-centred global surgery. Professor O'Connell.
Well, good evening all. I'm not accustomed to speaking to live audiences. I much prefer avatars, but it is nice to be back in the Albert Theatre. We haven't actually had a meeting here, it seems like, for years, and in fact it is for years. So welcome everyone to RCSI and to the inaugural Dublin meeting of the Patient-Centred Global Surgery event. And we're delighted to gather in person, and it's a pleasure for me to welcome so many people and to greet people who will be seeing this online in due course. This evening, the Dublin meeting will put a spotlight on research that focuses on patients and puts them at the centre of our efforts. We may celebrate as clinicians what we've achieved, but unless it makes meaningful impact in the quality of life of the patients, it really has little role. And patient-reported outcome measures are really what we should be looking at as the metrics by which we measure what we achieve. The Institute of Global Surgery builds on the collaborations that we have established in research, education and training with our partners in sub-Saharan Africa, and it reflects on the institutional commitment to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I warmly welcome our keynote speaker this evening, His Excellency Dr Mpoki Ulisubisya. I practiced and I apologize. But you are very welcome. In fact, he feels very warmly welcomed in Ireland because he's just come from Ottawa, where he holds the position of High Commissioner of Tanzania in Canada, and he tells me that it's minus 15. Now, if that's centigrade, that's bad, but if it's minus 15 Fahrenheit, it's really bad. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to Stella Ungatu, CEO of CANECSA, the College of Surgeons of East, Central and South Africa. And we've had a long partnership with CANECSA, a successful collaboration that is now in its 14th year. And its mission is to upscale surgical training in sub-Saharan Africa. And to date, it's been remarkably successful with over 600 surgeons graduated, now working in 20 countries. This partnership has been funded by Irish Aid since the outset, and I'm very pleased to acknowledge their constant, generous and steadfast support, and I welcome our partners from Irish Aid who are with us this evening. In 2020, working with Irish Aid and with the College of Anaesthesiologists of Ireland, we broadened the reach of this collaboration to formally support the training of anesthesiology workforce in the region. And despite the challenges of the pandemic, over 65 anesthesiologists from 4 countries are now in training, and that's a really wonderful broadening of the remit, essential if this is to be successful. In addition, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Noreen Masava and Ms. Sophie Masuka from CANECSA to join us here. Since the launch of the Institute of Global Surgery, Professor Mark Schreim, the O'Brien Chair of Global Surgery, and his team have made great progress in the research, education, and training, and the Institute is now reaching out to surgeons and patients in over 40 countries. Tomorrow, the meeting will continue online to hear from 3 keynote speakers. Tan Shri Dr. Nur Hissam Abdullah, Director General of Health in Malaysia, Dr. Alexandra Koliani, Assistant Professor at the Oregon Health and Science University, and Professor Agnes Bingawahu, Vice Chancellor of the University of Global Health Equality in Rwanda. The meeting will also share original research focused on patient-centered care from the Institute of Global Surgery and from presenters from around the world. But back to tonight and this evening, Dr. Ulisubisya will give a short address, and then we'll be in conversation with Professor Mark Schreim, and we will then open discussion to questions for the audience. So thank you for your attention, and I now invite Professor Carroll back to the podium.
Thank you, President O'Connell. And it gives me a great honor to introduce our invited guest this evening, His Excellency Professor Mpoki Ulisubisya, as the keynote speaker at the first Dublin Meeting in Patient-Centered Global Surgery. President Mpoki is the president of CANECSA, the College of Anaesthesiologists of East, Central, and Southern Africa. He is Tanzania's High Commissioner to Canada and previously served as the Permanent Secretary in the Tanzanian Ministry of Health. President Mpoki has over 25 years' experience as a practicing clinician, delivering critical care and anesthesia care, and as a medical educator for both undergraduate and postgraduate medicine in the United Republic of Tanzania. President Mpoki is a graduate of the University of Dar es Salaam, where he undertook both undergraduate and postgraduate training in anesthesiology. He is fellowship trained at the Royal Perth Hospital, Australia, and the Care Institute in India, and he also holds an MBA from Mzumbe University. As Permanent Secretary in the Tanzanian Ministry of Health, President Mpoki was responsible for introducing change management in regards to electronic patient data collection, with special emphasis on the collation of immunization data, the introduction of telehealth, and the promotion of high-quality, sustainable health services, which provided equity of access for all patients. President Mpoki is widely published internationally, including The Lancet, the African Journal of Anesthesia and Intensive Care, and the BJA. So indeed, it is a great honor to invite the president of CANECSA to the podium to deliver this evening's lecture. President Mpoki.
The Chancellor to the University, Dr. Carl Kelly, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Hanan McGee, Professor Ronan O'Connell. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. From RCSI, my own sister, Doreen Mashava, the Registrar of the College of Anaesthesiologists of East, Central, and Southern Africa, Professor Camilla Carroll for the wonderful introduction, but also for helping us to feel at home when we came into this place. Professor Ellen O'Sullivan, allow me to say an honorary fellow to the College of Anaesthesiologists of East, Central, and Southern Africa, and our good friend, Professor Brian Kinirons, also an honorary fellow to the College of Anaesthesia of East, Central, and Southern Africa, my sister Stella Itunga from the College of Surgeons of East and Central Africa, Sophia Masuka and Godfrey, who are teaming with us in this place to make sure that the collaboration bears the fruit that we need for the people of the great region of East, Central, and Southern Africa. It is indeed a great privilege for us to be invited to speak to this audience. And professors, you've said the ravages of SARS-CoV-2 infection in the world did not just limit meetings in Ireland. This has been global. Traveling has been a problem, and this is the first outing since the pandemic that any official of the College of Anaesthesiologists of East, Central, and Southern Africa are making. And I want to believe that once the Omicron is contained, then we shall have much less variants not to affect our meeting the way the previous variants have done. This evening, we want to concentrate on patient-controlled global surgery, but looking at the role that the profession of anesthesia plays. No disclosures, of course. I'm intending to talk from a perspective of the region that we represent, of East, Central, and Southern Africa, the health delivery systems in that place, and the need that led to the formation of the college that I represent, and the countries from which we draw our trainees, and then what role anesthesia plays in Africa, and then the solutions to the problems that we are confronted with on a short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Now, I pray that the college, the Royal College of Surgeons, keeps this map with them for posterity. It is this map that will transform the way the world relates to Africa. For the longest period of time, and this one I've yet to understand why cartographers did the way they did, the image of Africa is not realistic when it's looked at in maps, leading to people's finding problems to appreciate the challenges that we are confronted with, moving from one place to the other, but also the disease burden that we carry in the continent. So I thought I should begin by informing the audience that Africa is a very, very large continent. Africa is not one country. There are many countries in Africa, over 50 countries. To relate the size of Africa, the illustration that is placed within the map of Africa will help us to know that China would fit there without any problem, the United States of America next to China. We also would fit other countries such as India. These are places that are loaded with humans. So you take the population and the size of those countries, just put them in the African map. And because of that, then the disease impact is solid. Because we are located in the tropics, especially those countries that are south of Sahara. Now, I understand that the Tropic of Capricorn cuts along some countries in southern part of Africa. But believe you me, that the disease burdens are the same, irrespective of the change in the weather pattern that you see in the southern part of the continent, where we have distinct summers and the distinct winters. The middle part, that is north of Limpopo and the south of Sahara, we only have rain and dry seasons. And so for those of you that have problems tanning your skin, please feel welcome. The continent is still loaded with the space. Now, because it's a tropical climate, we have an unusual burden of disease-causing germs. And so our people tend to be infected and affected big time. We lose patients to infections that otherwise would have been easily treated. Now, for the longest period of time, we concentrated our care to patients in hospital settings to vector-borne illnesses. Because when missionaries came to Africa, that is what surprised them. People had ulcers, the kind that could not heal, tried everything but failed. They put in culture and sensitivity studies. They were able to pick microorganisms that responded to antibiotics. And so our attention then shifted from prevention to curative for the longest period of time. Knowing that patients acquire illnesses in their domestic setting, forgetting that intervention is a necessary key to solving this problem has led our people to suffer immensely without any good reason. The time that brought a change in the way of looking at things is when so many of our kind went to school and reflected on their own lives, on the kind of diseases that the people suffered where they were staying, and related to the knowledge that they acquired in medical schools. Then we brought in the category of the non-vector-borne illnesses, but still impacting our people in millions. And recently, we are also suffering from non-communicable diseases. Why? We have tried our best to adapt foreign lifestyles. Foreign in the real sense of the word foreign, because it was not traditional. It was not traditional to eat food the way people that visited us with their civilization taught us how to eat. We were not working the way we've been taught to work, and those combined led us to forfeiting that which made us to be very resilient. Those of you who've privileged to spend time in the continent would agree with me that when you go into rural areas, it is not unusual to come across people that are 90, 100 years old. The same cannot be said about people that stay in urban settings, because that's where the impact of urbanization and the coping other lifestyles has hit us hard. The internet has not made matters easier, because now it's very easy to copy by just watching a YouTube video on some food and learn some recipe and those kind of things. Traditionally, we never used to process our foods. We ate them fresh from the farm, and that was all year round. When we had a drought, we had crops that would sustain us during the dry periods. When it was wet, then, we had a big choice of what to bring on the menu. Societies that have sustained such traditions are very healthy. It is not unusual to find people walking distances of hundreds of kilometers without any problem in the African continent. And such examples are seen in East Africa. The Maasai people, who roam the plains of savannah without any problem. All they do is take care of their animals. They walk all the time. Main diet, protein, meat. And even with the little science that they know, they are very far from diseases that afflict those of us that load our plates with too much carbohydrates and many other things that have been processed. Now, because of the disease burden that I was making reference to, surgery is a component. Traditionally, we had systems that addressed illnesses in the African tribal groups. In Kisii, Kenya, they were so advanced that they did craniotomies. It is on record, and you can YouTube and see it for yourself. Without the pleasure of a sterile environment in the operating theater, just sit under a tree and opened the skull and people holding the patient so that they, okay. That was the time, Doreen, that the practice that you and I have kept so close to the heart, Professor O'Sullivan and Kinneron's, was very far. So anesthesia was provided in terms of ATPs that were spent by people holding the patient so that they don't make any movement. They treated depressed skull fractures. The only thing that they didn't know was how to reconstruct the skull. So people are left with very, very ugly skulls, and you can see them to this day because I belong to that people group and I'm speaking this from experience. But that was not the only thing. We treated our tummy ailments, whether they were secondary to food going through the gut faster than it's supposed to be, or the constipations and those kind of things. We had potions traditionally because each village had somebody that was blessed with such knowledge. And for the longest time, that is what helped us. Now, since we still belong to the same environment, we have realized that the traditional approach to disease management has an impact in patients to this day. So when people fall ill, the first place they go to is a traditional healer next to where they stay. Sometimes they work very, very well, but other times they waste precious time that would have solved problems. And by the time the traditional healer acknowledges that they have not been successful, this disease has ravaged the body so much that the consequences are very dire. One simple illustration to explain this would best suit this audience is the impact of such delays in maternal health, where sub-Saharan Africa, together with other Asian countries, still have very large maternal mortalities. And all of them, if they were to be examined critically or investigated or evaluated, delay is one major reason. And if this is not going to be addressed, the consequences will still be bad. Now, people are talking of maternal mortalities in terms of, 400. Now we want to reduce it to 100, to 50. One time I was privileged to speak before a World Bank audience. I told them, who of us here will be comfortable to lose their relative? Say we agree that we reduce the maternal mortality to 1 per 10,000. Who of us here would accept that a normal, healthy, pregnant mom-to-be expecting to bring another life loses their life just like that because of preventable causes? The answer was none of us. So 1 is 1 too many. And so any intervention that will ignore such problems is not going to be good to us. Look at the malignant conditions. They are seen as swellings. So if you go to a traditional healer, they are going to treat it like any other swelling, like a boil. And then you wait. By the time they realize that that wound that they made there has complicated matters, it is too late for any other intervention to reverse the process. And so that time when intervention would have brought cure is lost. All you are left with is palliation and waiting for this person to go to an early grave. As a result, there are conventional interventions that have been adapted by our health delivery systems, the hospitals. And these are set up from the village up to the national level. So we have village health posts, but we also have dispensaries. Dispensaries, then we have health centers, and then districts will have a major hospital that will offer operative services. That is according to the traditional plan. But because of the population burst on its seam in the continent, efforts are in place now to make sure that surgical intervention are effected at the level of a health center, so that this service is closer to the people, so the travel that would have taken for a patient to be moved from one place where they are called as a first point of call to one where they will have this surgical intervention is shorter. We are working on the delay. And we believe with time, if these are equipped properly, talking about the human resource for health and health commodities, we'll be very fine. Now, we may not cut the mortalities to zero, but we are certain that the numbers are not going to be as many as they are now. Because this pattern would benefit the whole population, there's no government in Africa that has the resources to provide these services single-handedly. So we have an arm that is supplied by the private entities. We have faith-based organizations and those that are doing it for profit. And a very, very small portion would benefit from medical tourism or for conditions that cannot be managed in the African continent, then their illnesses are flown abroad. India has become a very popular destination because of cost, but there are few that are brought to other countries in other places. Now, this is a very, very serious undertaking for the countries that belong to the continent. So in the year 2001, African heads of states meeting in Abuja, Nigeria, committed to setting aside 15% of their gross annual budget to health. World Bank tells us that by 2019, it was only one country in Africa that exceeded the 10% mark, and that is the Kingdom of Lesotho. It came to the number at 11.3%. So this one impacts the speed at which these services that are very crucial could be taken closer to where people need them most. Because large numbers of populations in the African continent are rural-based. Yes, there is rural-urban migration, but it has not offset the number of people that are found in the rural areas. Now, because of this, then the system strengthening of national health systems is very crucial. And that is subscribed to the building blocks that were developed by the WHO a few years back, 2004, that look at service delivery, health workforce, information technology, medical products, or we call them medical commodities, so that have drugs, vaccines, and technologies, assistive and interventional, financing of the health sector, and the leadership and governance. This is white elephant if it's not built on patient-centered system, where we are looking at a patient as the target of everything that is being done. This is where we don't look at political affiliations, we don't look at regional basing, we don't look at a historical background. We are looking at a client that will come to our facility. What is it that they'll be coming to find? So those 6 blocks that are employed in strengthening the health system must conform to making sure that the patient is at the middle. Now, this model has a few subsets that bring this approach to a level that the patient will benefit most. We have personal health care, where people are taught how to take care of themselves so they don't fall ill. That is the preventive arm to this problem. And then we have shared decision-making. So this is where the patient is informed of their illness and they're given an opportunity to reflect on what will best suit to reverse the process. Surgeons, anesthesiologists, this is one area that we need to be very careful before patients give us their informed consent. So that informed aspect of the consent is what is best contained in this aspect. And then there's self-management, the pro and cons, because there are diseases that can be managed by person, by self, but there are others that you're wasting a lot of your precious time. Then there's capacity building in provider skills, where we need to invest adequately on people that manage patients that come to our facilities. And this information sharing that is knowledge-based has to be sustainable. We cannot afford to allow people that graduated and forgot everything that is written in their textbooks to be expected to provide quality services. The onus is on us to make sure that these people have their skills refined. So impressed yesterday and earlier part of today to see the training setup that the Royal College of Surgeons has and the College of Anaesthetists of Ireland have through simulation, where you deal with mannequins and make all the mistakes. And I told the team that was going around with us yesterday, and also I repeated the same when we were visiting the College of Anaesthetists of Ireland, where there is a person that was very proud of the knowledge that they had acquired in managing cases. So they said, okay, let's see how you do it. They were taken to a sim lab, and they were video game savvy, so navigating the place was not a problem. But in the course of trying to address a certain condition that the mannequin had possessed, the individual fumbled so much that the person who was moderating told them that by now the patient is already dead. So try to imagine if that was done in a typical hospital setting. This intervention that provides space for people to make mistakes and correct them repeatedly without hurting the patient should form the mainstay of training. It is the mainstay of training here, and I was talking to Professor Connor that we want to join hands with CANECSA in that part of the world. So we have one-stop center that will help the surgical-related skills to cross-fertilize on resource utilization for our trainees to acquire such skills. Now, we will have to start at one point and then maybe populate the rest of the region. And so these are some of the principles that need to be adhered to. Now, anesthesia, as many other medical professions, have long histories. But whenever I talk about anesthesia, by the way, I'm a Bible-believing Christian, and so you know I have to make reference to the book of Genesis. And, chapter 2 speaks of God creating a companion for Adam. And I like the sentence where it says, it is not good, and so on. All right, so God had resources at his disposal to make another human being. But he decided to employ surgery as a way of making another human being a fit helper for Adam. And what does the Bible say? It was anesthesia that provided a fitting environment for such surgery to take place. Adam was meant to sleep. It was very safe. No monitors, no nothing. So he was meant to sleep, and we are told that a rib was resected, and out of that rib we see the beautiful ladies. Oh, but you ladies are beautiful. Yeah, so anesthesia plays a very, very significant role in care of patients anywhere in the hospital, from the emergency medicine department, surgery, and even after the surgery. The most unfortunate part, in the part of the world where we come from, is that we concentrate on the pre-operative aspect, say about 4%. 95% is intraoperative. I don't know about Ireland, but I know about the CANECSA region. We are good at taking care of a patient under the influence of drugs, and when surgeons are very busy doing that which they went to school learning, cutting and suturing. There are situations where we also provide critical care services. Now, and the critical care service that is provided for the longest period of time since independence has been the general critical care. It is recently that we've woken up to realize that actually general is not good enough. We need to look at age groups. That neonatal critical care is not the same as pediatric critical care. So that population is growing in our setup. With such needs, there's also need for the human resource for health. So yes, we have general training programs, but also we are finding that there is need for us to come up with super specialization. So when you are doing open heart surgery, you need a cardiac intensive care unit. For those that are good at looking inside the brain, we need a neuro intensive care that will have equipment different from that which is found on a general or the medical intensive care. Camila is, she told me she does head and neck. So the complications that would lead to a patient desiring critical care will not be found in a cardiac ICU. That is why, much as we are late, we are running to make sure that we also make up on this one. And what is the pull factor in all this? From the beginning of my talk, the pulling factor is the patient. We are seeing patient groups that come with various diseases that deserve this kind of intervention. And the push factor is the professional calling that comes from our exposure to knowledge and practice, but also from what we learn during research and when we network what we see happening in other places from our colleagues. Because of this problem, the year 2010 provided a meeting of ministers of health of EXA region in Harare, Zimbabwe. During that meeting, which was ably attended by Professor O'Sullivan, Professor Cunningham, and the others, the ministers of health acknowledged the fact that the historical way of training doctors in our region would not bridge the gap of human resource for health that had been widening with increased population growth. MED programs have been the mainstay, and these were borrowed. 3 years, 4 years programs, but the seats in those universities were so limited. 4, 5. Kenya, occasionally we have 10. Zimbabwe, maybe, because those are the only 2 countries in the region that have a sustainable number, bigger numbers of anesthesia service providers. When this decision to form a virtual fellowship training program was made, and that decision for College of Health Sciences also provided space for the College of Anaesthesiologists of East and Central Africa to be formed at the same time, with the purpose of advancing education standards and research in safe anesthesia and critical care for the region that we're representing. So the ministers of health agreed that there was need for us to find another mechanism of producing experts. This is how CANECSA got formed. Now, the East, Central, and Southern Africa member countries at the moment are these, but that time we had a few more that ever since I decided to change their mind and go anywhere. But the ones that are there are very strong and kicking. And so constituent member countries who form the College of Anaesthesiologists of East and Central Africa are colored in blue, with an exception of one country because it is not an EXA member country. That is Rwanda. So the countries that form this college are Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Malawi, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. Eswatini and Lesotho also fall in this group. Now, Mauritius should have been here, but Mauritius is self-sufficient. They did not need this intervention to bridge the human resource gap in their country. With time, Rwanda realized they would do better, joining hands with us. And at the moment, there are 3 other countries with societies that are mulling the idea of joining the college, that is Ethiopia, DRC, and Namibia. Our desire, if it were in our power, was to match the presence of CANECSA so that we complement those efforts. And the reason for this is very simple. You know, you cannot have surgeons where, you cannot expect surgeons to have quality output if you do not have quality anesthetic services. So hopefully in the future, seeing the work that currently is being done by the College of Anaesthesiologists of East and Central Africa, East Central and Southern Africa, we believe that more countries will be joining. Long journey, but we've started it anyway. And this is the basis that helps us to navigate the path into meeting the objectives for our existence. We did SWOT analysis. We appreciate the strengths, but we also are cognizant of the weaknesses, the challenges, but what drives us forward are the opportunities. And we shall never be coward, we shall never be disappointed, because the long journey that we've just started will be complemented by every step that we make every day in trying to meet that goal. Now, on the short term, we decided to look at the region and the number of service providers. So I'm so delighted to tell you that if you're to visit the website whose link is shared there, you will be able to see the actual numbers that existed when we were making when we were preparing this workforce distribution in the region. Why do we need this? Because it's numbers that will convince people of the need to intervene. If we do not know what we don't have, there is no way we shall get a desire to acquire it. So the more red that we see, the more we desire to have it less red. And hopefully in the future we shall have white throughout the whole region. And I don't care how long that takes. That is our desire as a college, to make sure that all patients coming to hospital will be served with qualified individuals. So in the medium term, we employ this figure to convince those that are doubting the desire that we have to have improved capacity in those areas. You don't need to do research to appreciate the fact that rural-urban migration is very rife in situations when people leave their place of work to go and train in urban centers. If they're going to be training for 4 years, they develop affiliation with the urban setting, it becomes a very, very serious problem to have them go back where they came from. The collegiate form of training that is being advocated by the College of Health Sciences that's run by EXA, under which CANECSA is, provides for people to train where they are employed. So if we say we have accredited 30 hospitals in the region, we expect those hospitals to have those specialists serving where they're learning at the same place. So the only temptation will be to go to places where they're going to acquire skills that are not available, the skill set that are not available. And that's going to be for a short period of time, which isn't the very best way of developing liking to places that you've not been. That is our desire, and it's our prayer that God will help us to realize this, so that when people are trained, stay where they are trained. The other illustration that this audience should not forget is so many of our people were privileged to come to Europe for training. It's an open secret that a majority of them stayed, which is commonly known as brain drain. And somebody was trying to mitigate the process by saying, now these people are highly specialized. I mean, how do you drain the brain by taking them where they are not going to put their knowledge to use? Well, I don't want to make public the adjective that I give under such arguments. Intelligent minds will improvise. Those of you that have been in operating theaters and have had complicated challenges that you never read in the book, it's the knowledge that you acquired that helped you to navigate those difficulties. This cuts across the board in the medical field. And so we desire to train our people where they are so they stay there and offer services. The temptations are made less in that process. So this college decided to embark into training. Now, what we do not say is the journey, which maybe is not very necessary. that the college was molded in the year 2011. The first graduates came out in 2020. I mean, babies are born and they stay till they are 20 before they leave home. So, I mean, this is the process. Some of these things are not very easy because of quality issues, because we expect not just to train, but to train the caliber that will be able to stand and put value in their practice. So the college, up to the year 2020, has been able to establish a web-based e-learning platform where trainees can access information in their own time and learn and go back and learn again and sharpen their knowledge and skills. We also have in-person sessions. At the moment, we are talking of 8 training facilities because these have been accredited in the region. But we are looking forward towards the end of this year to have at least 32 centers that will be qualified by our medical, or we call them professional registration board. They'll be good enough to offer training. We've also produced a training manual that we never had for trainees and the trainers. We have a research methodology program, and we want to thank RCSI for the collaboration that have helped us to access such material. We are currently working on developing a curriculum for pediatric anesthesia and that of obstetric anesthesia. And for obvious reasons, we tend to see greater impact of disease in these age groups. So if we do not intervene early, the gains that are made by the investment may not be realized. So we need to intervene where such intervention will make sense when people want to investigate the return on investment. We realize that training is one thing, but you needed competent individuals to offer training. And so we want to thank the Royal College of Surgeons Ireland for the partnership that enabled us to piggy ride on their expertise, where we trained our own, and at the moment we have 72 people that have received training. They are qualified to train others, and of these, 62% are females. We also realize that you can't train without examining. Now, for those of you that are following this conversation, please do not misunderstand me for thinking that I like examinations. But it's the only mechanism that is at our disposal to check whether people have acquired the relevant knowledge and that they are able to prove that it's going to be employed in their work. We decided to engage ourselves in offering opportunities for fellows to learn how to examine. And we have about 20, and this is an ongoing process, just like the other one for trainers. We anticipate before end of this year to have about 12 master trainers so that we build capacity locally to train more people in that particular area. Yeah, now because of the examiners that are present and the collaboration with the partners, we managed to administer examinations that have helped us to deal with 13 members and 23 fellows. And when we talk about graduation, then that is the results of the work that has been done. I'm going to share with you some images that will reflect to what I've just said. Currently, we have trainers that are learning how to do it. They're about 19 and they do it virtually. On the right-hand side of that slide for Welcome All, you see there is a very, very familiar logo. Yeah, so you know where this is coming from. So when we talk about collaborations, this is the practical aspect that makes a lot of. So RCSI has been very, very key in ensuring that we navigate this path properly. Yeah, we also conduct examinations, and those that satisfy the examiners are awarded fellowship. And that is a sample fellowship certificate, and one was displayed here before we started this call. These are virtually done because of the COVID restrictions. we are learning from our colleagues, CANECSA, on how to do some of these things, but this has been the new norm. They had never done it, and so we had to adapt the system where Zoom helped us very much to supervise, but also in person. Individuals looking into the interest of quality so that each candidate that presented themselves for training to be examined proved their worth. And as a result, we have the smiles. And in the middle of this picture is the most outstanding performer in the first set of examinations from Zambia. This talk will not be complete without mentioning individuals, organizations that have been very, very instrumental in helping us walk the journey. Now, you have to remember that ministers of health made a decision, so we have to collaborate with ministries of health in our member countries. We also are open to collaborations with international organizations such as RCSI for the technical input that we need. And these have been guided by strategic plans that the college had drawn. We had the first one between 2015 to 2020, and now we just launched, today actually, we launched the 2021 to 2025. And the partnerships that have helped us to realize our dream has been that of CANECSA, and through CANECSA, the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland, the College of Anaesthetists of Ireland, the Royal College of Surgeons, or the Royal College of Anaesthetists, DECAMED, Smile Train, Research, and you know the reason as to why Irish Aid is standing on their own. Their input is very, very instrumental to push where pulling could not have sufficed, and for that we are very grateful. We are looking far all the time. And in Africa, we know if you want to travel very fast, you do it alone. But if you want to cover a significant distance, then you need to work with others. This College of Anaesthesiologists for East Central and Southern Africa honors and values the contribution that other entities are making. The long-term aspirations are to become a body that will stand on its 2 feet to contribute to the workforce in the region, that will offer quality, timely, sustainable services to the sick in the field of anesthesia and critical care. Because it will be a long time before we come to a place where people will simply narrow their learning into critical care without touching the patient in the operating theater. I want to thank you for your time. This has been a wonderful experience. Now, you people have problems pronouncing my surname. I would have problems reading that like appreciation. And that is thank you in many languages that are found in the EXA region. God watch over you and bless you. Thank you so much for the time.